So I have a block or a chair handy for today's practice. You might even want some padding for under the knees. We'll be on the knees for a bit, or you can use the chair. So let's begin resting. Resting comfortably here on the back, so we can just transition into a place of stillness and softness. Finding some greater awareness here of how we feel physically, mentally, allowing for our whole body's weight to soften and settle. So feel free to make small movements in your head or your neck, or reposition the pelvis, the arms and legs, finding where they can rest. That softens into the hips, relaxes into your shoulders. And let yourself notice where you're meeting the ground. So feel the back of your body and let those points of contact soften and broaden further into the support under you. So feel the width of your upper back and your shoulders resting. And feel the weight of your pelvis, your sacrum settling. And as you let go of any tension in the face, softening the jaw and relaxing the eyes, you can let your head sink further back. So let your awareness settle with the movements of your breath. You can feel the inhale as it flows in through the nose. And be aware of the exhale as the breath leaves through your nose. And follow the breath's movements down into your belly, out into your ribs, and up into your chest. And try to encourage your inhales to slow down and deepen with as little force, as little sense of strain or tension. Just a gentle, slow, deep breath in. And as you follow the length of your exhale, feel your chest release, the ribs narrow, the belly soften. And as your inhales deepen, inviting your exhales to lengthen, and even potentially letting the exhales be a little longer than your inhales. So when you think you're at the end of your exhale, is there a little more breath you can let go of while keeping relaxed through the shoulders, the neck, the jaw? Making room for another deep breath to flow in and down. And stay with that somewhat slower, more rhythmic breath for a few more cycles. Noticing how your body moves with your inhale. And feel how your body moves as you exhale. And then then little by little begin to reawaken your body. So finding some deliberate, gentle movement here through your hands and your feet, fingers and toes and ankles and wrists. And then once you feel ready, you can enjoy a stretch. Feeling free to interlace the fingers if you're wanting that, as you're reaching back with your arms and getting long here through the legs. So feel the whole body as though it's gently being pulled in both directions, long through the spine, the limbs. Notice the breath here, moving maybe a little more into the sides. And then with your next exhale, let's go ahead and bring both knees in. And we'll just find a bit of movement here. So you can start with a gentle rock side to side. And then you can feel free to let that movement become more circular. So letting your knees move away from you with your inhale. And then letting them circle back in towards you with your exhale. So just noticing a nice gentle massage around the whole sort of edge of the sacrum and low back. Good, going in the other direction as well. That's it. Feel your breath as you feel this movement. And then let's roll all the way over onto the right side. So you're going to rest on your right side. You can make a pillow with your bottom arm, or you can bring a pillow under your head if you prefer. Okay? Or you can just let the head rest and get a stretch through the neck if that's comfortable for you. So we're going to stay on the side for a little bit and feel the movement in this top leg. So we're going to try to keep the hips stacked, one over the other, so that left hip is above the right hip. And then just get a sense here of moving your top hip, so that left hip. Try to let it move a little bit away from your head. So often what happens when we're on our back, on our side, our hips sort of lift towards that same shoulder. The top hip lifts towards the same shoulder, and we shorten this side of the waist and lengthen more into the bottom side. So you might even just take your fingers underneath the bottom waist and see if you can find a little bit of space, a little tiny curve there through the waist away from the ground as this top hip moves away from the head. So you've just also found a little more support through the core there, some width and lift through the belly. So see if you can maintain that position. While we keep the feet together, keep the hips stacked, let's simply lift the knee and lower the knee. So the feet are staying together, and it's a really quite small movement, these clamshell movements. So we'll start to wake up into the side of the thigh and back into this hip, glute. So it's sometimes helpful to bring your fingers onto that top hip, top glute, and try not to let your hip roll back when you lift your knee. Okay, so there's no movement in the pelvis. And there's just movement right into this hip joint there, where the thigh sits into the hip socket. So it's quite a small little lift and lower. So the small range of motion really concentrates the movement so that these muscles that do the movement, these little hip rotator muscles, start to really wake up as they're kind of always engaged in this movement, even as we're lowering and lifting. All right. Feel it with your breath. The next time you lift your knee, let's be there. So the leg is sort of rotated out a bit, right? So the knee is turning a little bit away from the bottom knee, right? And we're going to keep that. And all we're going to try to do is now straighten the leg. So your toes are turning slightly towards the ceiling. That's it. And noticing if there's been any movement in the hips, and see if you can keep them stacked. Keep the top hip moving away from the bottom hip as you're pushing through the heel, and pushing up through the toes. One more breath there. Hovering the leg out like this. What do you feel? And then bend it, and let it go, and massage a little into where you noticed some muscles engaging, some heat. Okay. And then let's keep the knees together. So knees are stacked one over the other as the hips are. That top hip again moves away from the top shoulder, finding a little bit of that length through both sides of the waist, width through the belly. Now this time, let's keep the knees together and just lift the foot. So now we're rotating inward through this hip joint, right? We're trying to, as we lift the foot, we can feel the movement into this hip rotating in. The thigh bone turns in, this knee turns down, that's it. And see if you can sort of like, instead of pushing up in a jerky movement, can you make the movement smooth from beginning to end? Yeah. And maybe even pause for a moment when you reach the top of your movement, where the foot is as high as it can be. That's it. And, for some of us, we don't really feel a whole lot. And for others, we feel a whole lot. And you'll notice pretty quickly which one you are feeling today. Stay with the breath. See if you can relax any tension in the shoulders and neck, letting the head rest. All right. Now the next time we lift that foot, let's pause with it lifted. So we're going to try to keep the leg rotated in. And this time we're going to take this knee up, and then we're going to straighten the leg again. You got it. And let's see if we can go sort of halfway down, sort of between straight back and straight forward. So our knees are no longer stacked, but we're still turning in with this leg. So the toes and the knee are turning towards the floor. You're kind of pushing up through that outer heel. Feel this for another breath or two. I know it's surprising how much you notice burning into this leg, and then bend it and let it go. Massage it out. Let's do one last one on this side. So this time we're gonna keep the legs stacked, but we're going to lift the entire top leg off of the bottom leg. So flex your top foot so your heel is reaching away from your knee, your toes are pointing forward, and then really small little movement to lift the whole leg up. The knee and the foot, try to keep them at the same level, and then lower them down again. So lifting and lowering. And you're not lifting the leg very high, okay? So, and this is good, because the higher you go, the more you're going to feel the movement in the whole pelvis. And you're not going to feel it as much where we're trying to find the strength more into that outer thigh, outer glute. So notice whether you're rolling back, and maybe make the movement a little smaller. A smaller range of motion, really concentrating the movement. Yes, that's it. And you feel pretty quickly how heavy this leg gets. But stay with the breath as you feel these sensations. All right, last one, we'll lift and hold. Okay, so it's maybe just barely above the hip height, right? And then let's straighten straight ahead. So now your foot and your hip is sort of centered rather than turned out or turned in. So let's keep this and bring the legs slowly down or back, yep, in line with your upper body. So we can do these little tiny pulsing movements up and down with the leg. Yes, feel like your baby toe pushes towards the ceiling. That's it. Outer heel pushes towards the sky along with the baby toe. Yeah, outer edge. That's it. And then let it go. Whew. And massage. So now we're going to come into a twist. So the same twist that we often do, but it likely will feel a little different. So stretch out that right arm and feel free to find a little bit of movement if you want through the left arm, circling it around your body a couple times. And you might notice as you go into that twist, lots of sensation of stretch in that top hip, top thigh. So whenever you feel ready to land into this twist through the upper back, settling the head even a little to the left, you might notice a lot of sensation here. And so I do as well. So often I find that finding a bit of movement in the top leg just to kind of loosen into all that burny, stretchy sensation. So kind of like small little bicycle movements is what I want to do, but feel free to just sort of do what you're wanting as well. You can just sort of lift and lower the knee. And then if you can, find a bit of stillness within this shape, feeling free to rest your right hand on that top thigh with a gentle massage into any tight spots while you're here. As your knees settle to the right, feel your upper body, chest, head, shoulders resting to the left. Good, nice. And then we'll slowly return onto the back. Whew. And just wiggle it out, noticing how each side of your thighs and hips feel. And then go ahead and hug both knees in, and we'll roll over onto the left side, making a pillow with your bottom arm if you want, or have a pillow under your head. So as your knees are out at around hip height, right, in front of you, stacking the right hip on top of the left one, just notice how the bottom waist may have sort of flattened into the floor. And see if you can draw that bottom waist away from the ground a little bit by moving your top hip away from your head. So you're lengthening through this side of the waist, lengthening through the bottom side of the waist, and widening through the belly, finding the support to hold the pelvis in that shape. While we keep the feet together, let's lift and lower the top knee. Feeling free to rest your fingers or thumbs into that side hip, side glute. And you might even be able to feel the muscle that is working a little bit. And you can also notice whether your top hip is rolling back. Yeah, so you can sort of imagine you've got a wall right behind you and you can't roll back. How does it feel on this side? I find the second side gets a little more fatigued because the bottom leg is working a little bit, right? Just to sort of stabilize us. So because this bottom leg has already worked a little bit, it was the bottom on our first side. Yeah, might notice it gets fatigued a little more easily. That's it. So keeping the movement, the range pretty small. That's it. As you feel each breath. All right. Next time you lift the knee, so the knee is turning out a little bit, let's straighten the leg. Whew. So we've got the knee and the toes turned up, but we also want to try to avoid rolling back on that top hip. So stack the hips and feel the movement more into this thigh bone hip socket. One more breath, push through the heel, turn the toes and knee towards the sky. Whew. And then let it go. And massage. Side body work is always a lot more surprising how difficult it is. We don't often, unless we're like tennis players or, different sports players, we really don't utilize the muscles in our sides a whole lot. So that's what we're doing today. So this time, let's keep the knees stacked. And again, draw that top hip away from the head. as you lift your foot and lower the foot. So again, this one we tend to sort of get a little jerky in the movement often. So see if you can slow the movement down. Let it be a little smoother from beginning to end. Yeah, and you're keeping the foot pretty flexed here too. So yeah, the outer heel, outer edge of the foot is pushing towards the ceiling as you're finding the rotation in at the hip. So just noticing how much inward rotation you have on this side. For me, it's a little less. So my foot doesn't quite lift as high as it did on the other leg, and that's okay. Noticing maybe with your fingers what muscles you're engaging here to do this internal rotation of the hip. Good. All right, last time you lift that outer foot. Okay, let's lift the knee, but keep it turned in. And then we're gonna straighten the leg sort of at an angle diagonal from the hip to the mat, you know? Push out through the heel, but try to keep that leg rotated in. And it's tricky. My leg does not like to rotate in on this side, so I really have to concentrate while still breathing. That's it. Push that outer heel up, toes down for one more breath. Really good. And then let it go. Whew. And massage, and maybe even a little gentle punch. All right, let's do the last one. So we've got the knees stacked, hips stacked, top hip moving away from the head so that lower waist is sort of lighter against the ground or slightly away from the floor. And then as you have the foot flexed, lift your whole leg up and lower it down. Keep the knee bent so there's no movement in the knee or in the foot. And we're trying to keep the foot and the knee on the same level this time. So last time we were, lifting the knee higher and then the foot higher. And this time we're trying to do everything together. Yeah, so getting into a different area of the hip and those muscles along the outer thigh and glute. And again, concentrating the movement into a small range. So the leg might just lift just to or slightly above the hip, not a whole lot higher. Okay. Try for a couple more with your breath. Yay, feeling that burn. Okay, last time you lift, stretch out the leg. Whew. Push through the heels, spread through the toes back. Can you keep that top hip moving away from the head? Try not to arch your back when you bring the leg to stretch away from the head. And then lift and lower the leg. So again, this is a small lift. So you're not lifting super high because you want to try to avoid moving it all in the waist. And the movement is coming just from the hip down. Yeah, so it's small. And it's harder when it's small. You might notice. All right, and then let it go. And release it. Whew. All right. Stretch out your bottom arm, right hand on top of it. And go for a big circle with the right arm, coming into the twist, over to the right, circling down again. We can do that a couple more times just to get into the upper body a little bit here. Shoulders and chest. Yeah, and then whenever you feel ready to land into this twist, go for it, and you'll notice likely a lot more sensation than usual in this reclined twist around those muscles we just worked through the glute, through the thigh. So I find I need to find a little movement just to kind of shake it out bending and straightening the knee, maybe a bit of a kind of bicycle movement, lifting and lowering the knee, whatever you need to do to land here in comfort, as best you can. It helps to bring your awareness to the breath. So feel your inhale flowing in. Where does it move? And as you exhale, what can you soften? What can you relax? And feel the support of the ground a little more. Really nice. Follow one more cycle of breath here. Excellent. Let's slowly unwind. Making the way back onto your back. All right. Give the hips a little shake here. And then once you feel, you can rest in the center now through the back of the pelvis. Find your feet underneath your knees. Let's give this a try. We may have to shift where our feet are positioned, but let's just start out maybe with them about hip distance apart. Rest your arms in a way that helps to let the shoulders relax, so we can just concentrate on feeling this movement in the hips. So we're going to lift into a small bridge pose, lifting the hips, and really feel as you've lifted your hips, your tailbone curling up towards your knees, your pubic bone lifting towards the navel more. And so we might actually start with the feet slightly wider than hips, turning toes and knees out so the knees are separated. The toes maybe point more to the front corners of the mat. So what might be best is keeping your toes away from the floor. So you're going to work on those shin muscles a little bit here to keep the toes up. So we're going to use the heels as pivot points. Let's keep our hips where they are and try to squeeze the thighs and knees together. So reposition the feet as you need to find that action. Without moving the feet, you're going to turn the knees and toes out and then squeeze in. So that's all we're doing. Usually, sometimes we do the full circular movement. Let's just do the in and out movement. And this is sort of similar to what we were doing on our side, but now we're in bridge and moving both legs away from one another and then towards each other. And yeah, notice what you feel as you're noticing the breath. Yeah, you can let the inhale come and the exhale go. Nice. And then as you squeeze in, let's lower the feet until they're about hip distance apart. And just, you can let the knees and thighs separate, but push down really firmly through those feet. Pull back through the heels and feel your knees reach forward for another breath there. Thighs are parallel. You got it. Let's lower it down. A little bit of work in those glutes. Let's, for a moment, cross the right ankle over the left knee. Get a bit of a stretch in that glute as we take the hands behind the left thigh and draw that knee in. You can also just bring a block or a bolster under your left foot if you don't want to hold on. That's it. So let the breath move down into your belly, down into your hip. And with each exhale, maybe there's a bit more space to find the stretch further. With each inhale, just ease up again, make room for the breath. Each exhale, a little hug up and in through the belly, less work in the shoulders to find the stretch more through the hip. And just one more breath here. Good. Let's stretch both legs up in the air. Give them a little shake. And then rest your feet. And we'll cross the left ankle over the right knee, flexing gently through that left foot, drawing the left knee away from you as your right knee comes in. Bringing a block under the right foot, to elevate it just slightly, or take your hands or a scarf or something around the right thigh to hold on. Check in with your shoulders, let them do less. Find your breath, moving deeper, slower, down into your belly, down into your hips. And each exhale, finding a little more movement into the stretch. You could play around with a gentle sort of slight rock side to side, noticing how as you move your hips a little side to side, it might change where the stretch is for you. So you can find where you need it. Good. Feel one last breath here. Stretching up the legs again, give them a little shake, and we might just open the legs out. You can hold on if you want to the outer thighs and stretch there through the heels away. So you've got some length coming into those inner thighs for just another breath there. All right, let's bring the legs back in. We're bending the knees as we roll again onto our side so that we can press up onto our hands and knees. So find the hands underneath the shoulders in your table pose. Knees or feet under the hips. Let's start to find a bit of movement through the spine, rounding into cat tilt, opening into dog tilt. And just finding that motion to the rhythm of your breath. And the whole time, can you keep the neck long? So the shoulders don't hunch towards the ears, they're staying sort of down the back. And you can feel how your shoulder blades spread apart when you round, and feel how your shoulder blades draw in as you arch. All right. And then come into more of a neutral spine here. So if you're on the chair, you're going to be in more of like a plank pose on the chair. So your feet are slightly behind your hips as you're forward. And we're going to take this into a side plank variation. So let's straighten out the right leg. So we've got the right leg stretched out behind. And then we can hover the left knee or bring the left foot to the floor slightly in front of your right foot. That's it. So we're in sort of a half table, half plank. And then we can roll over onto the outer edge of our right foot, and our left foot plants into the floor just slightly forward of our leg. And we can send the left arm up. So we're in a side plank. We're finding a strong straight line from our head through our chest, through our belly, through our right leg. And the left arm just stretches up. Feel that for another full breath. You got it. And then let's lower slowly again. Bring the hands back under the shoulders, coming back into your table pose for a moment. All right, and then let's find that sort of half plank, half table, straightening your left leg. So your left leg is strong and long. Your back heel is off the floor likely. Let's slowly curl those back toes under so you can, or right toes under, I mean. So you can hover your right knee. Your foot is down. And we're going to slowly shift our weight onto our left hand and the side of that left foot as we send the right arm up. So try not to sink the hips down towards the floor, and instead push the ground away from you and lift the hips a little higher. That's it. You got it. There's balance involved for sure. Feel your breath. Really nice. And then take it down again, back onto hands and knees. Rest for a moment in a comfortable, relaxed pose, whether it's a child's pose, standing forward bend. Just soften a little more here through the shoulders and the neck. Breath moving into your back. All right, and then let's inhale back up onto hands and knees into table pose. And let's bring the hands maybe a little forward of the shoulders, curl the toes under, and let's move our table forward and back, rocking our table pose. So toes are curled under as we're moving forward of our hands and then back behind the hands. And each time you go forward, you can push more forward and down through the palms. That's it. And then next time you push forward and down through the hands, your shoulders have come a little behind the hands. Let's slowly go ahead and lift the knees. Send the hips up and back. And feel the strength in the legs here. So often we think of the strength in the arms in downward dog, which is important, pushing forward and down through the arms and trying to kind of pull the elbows in towards each other, and that'll help bring a little more length into the neck. But with that in mind, let's see if we can bend the knees slightly and push up through the sitting bones. That's it. And press back through the inner thighs. So feel your inner thighs sort of reaching further back as you're stretching down through the heels. Now can you feel your feet on the floor? And as they press down, let's try to feel them pulling apart. So they're not moving, but you're trying to pull your feet away from one another. Notice that sensation through the legs as you're here for another breath. Really nice. And then let's slowly walk the feet and the hands towards each other until we have all the weight in the legs, dangling the upper body over the support of the legs here. Rest the head, rest the arms. They don't have to touch the ground. You're just letting them dangle or hold the elbows. Notice how your breath moves as you're here. Feel a full inhale, slow and deep. And be with that slow exhale. Another full breath. Good, and then start to roll it up. So push down through your feet, curl up and in through the belly. Draw the tailbone down as you stack the spine. Unfurling it slowly to stand tall in your mountain pose. Let's come into a wider stance now. So we've got the feet about a little wider than shoulder distance. And let's actually start with the right foot turned out more, and then the left foot facing out to the left. So we're in this warrior two stance with the right leg turned out and the left leg sort of in more neutral or turned in. Okay? And feel, let's just shift and notice one knee bending. So let's bend the right knee. Shoulders are going to stay above the hips the whole time. And then bend the left knee. Yeah? So we're bending each knee one at a time. And just feeling sort of the weight shift from one foot to the other foot. Noticing the movement in the knees. And trying to keep the pelvis centered so the tailbone is pointing down the whole time. Yeah, that's it. Okay, and then let's keep the left leg straight, right knee bent. And let's be here for a couple breaths. So let's move a little with each breath. What we're going to do is inhale the arms up, maybe like a V shape. And as you exhale, lower the arms and then pull up and in, sort of drawing up through sort of pelvic floor. So get a sense, let's just do this for a moment. Push down through the feet and feel your feet pulling towards each other. So if you get that action of pushing down and pulling your feet in towards each other, you'll feel some more work through those inner thighs. And basically you can extend that work up through the center of your body, up through the pelvic floor, up through the inner deep layer of the abdominals, and all the way up through the spine. So you're pushing down, pulling in, and feel how that, affects the rest of your body. So as you inhale, you're just letting go of the push of the pull of the feet in. So with your inhale, you're just sort of softening everything, letting the breath move in as the arms lift. And then exhale, press down, pull your feet in as your hands sort of draw in and up. Yeah. Inhale, relax, breath moves in. Exhale, push down through the feet, pull them in towards each other without actually moving them. Feel that for one more breath. Drawing everything in and up. Inhale, arms wide out to the sides. Now let's straighten the front leg. Take the right hand onto that front thigh. And now we're going to just let that right hand slide down the front leg, just to where you can go without shortening this lower side of the waist. And then pushing into your feet again. Inhale up. Exhale. Coming down, keeping the strength in the legs. Inhale, up again. Exhale, down into your triangle. Let's pause in the triangle. So can you get that sense, even when you're in this triangle shape, instead of your feet pushing away from one another, can you push down and pull in with your legs? Yeah, it's a little different. So feel that. Feel your legs strong, pressing down, but pulling towards one another. Really good. All right, and then come on back up. Whew, release the arms. Maybe a little bounce in the center before we take it to the other side. So left leg turns out, right leg faces forward. Just bend into one knee and then the other knee, just sort of shifting your weight. Do a little dance in the upper body if you want. Just loosen things up. Find the ground through your feet, noticing where your feet meet the floor, okay? All right. And let's try it again on this leg. So with the left knee bent, the right leg straight, it could feel a little different. So we're letting everything relax on the inhale. And then on the exhale, we're trying to push down and pull the feet in as we draw up through the center, So with each inhale, we're letting the breath come in and down as the arms widen and lift. On the exhale, we're taking the arms down, pushing into the feet, pulling them towards each other, drawing up. Breathe and relax. Exhale, find the support. Pulling in and up through center. Breath moves in. Breath moves out, drawing in and up. Breathing in. Breathing out. All right, one more time. This feels quite different for me on this side. Okay, last inhale. Open up the arms. Straighten into that front leg. You can rest your left hand wherever it happens to land. So we're going to try to move from the pelvis, right? As we slide the left hand down the leg and inhale, back up. Exhale, get the movement right through here. Deep fold in that left hip crease while we try to keep the head in the center and the spine long through the waist. Good, last one. So you may not go down, you may not want to go down quite as far as you may usually do in triangle, because we're going to push down through the feet, and instead of the feet moving away from the center, feel them pulling in. I just gave my hip a little adjustment there. So pull your feet in towards each other strongly as you breathe. That's it. One more breath there. Really nice. Inhale as you come up through center. Woo, release the arms. Let's walk the feet in. Shake it out a little. Okay. So this is where you're going to want either a chair or the block. So I'll just show it to you. With the block, you're going to do a sort of shorter warrior two stance. And we're going to do sort of that movement where we're eventually going to lift off of the back leg and go down towards the floor with the block. Right? Until we're eventually in that balance. So if the ground is just feeling a little too far, you can use a chair. I'll show it with the chair, the first side. Okay? So the chair would be there instead, so you don't go down as far. So it's less demanding in the standing hip. Okay? And a little easier to balance potentially too. Okay? So go to where you can enjoy it. All right, let's turn the right foot to face out. If you're using the block, have it in your hand, in your right hand, okay? Left foot back. So just notice when you bend into your front knee, can you get sort of lighter off of this back leg? And then come into your back leg again. Come into your front leg. Just feel the weight shifting. And as you're finding that shift, can you keep this stability around the trunk, around the core? So the waist doesn't move, the pelvis tries to stay sort of balanced with your ribs, where you end up, you might be able to lift off of your back foot and keep all that waist length and then come back again. So find the transitions, slow it down, pushing into your right leg, you're sort of lifting off of it as you raise your back leg, all right? And then maybe we're ready to come off of the back leg and bring the hand or the block to your support. So block to the floor, hand to the chair, lift this leg. So this is the same movement that we did when we were on our side, right? See if you can find a little pulse. If you're able to find the balance, find this little pulse of the left leg, and then try to lift and keep it as high as you can while the left arm stretches up. Notice all this space for the breath. Can you fill your body with that breath? Woo-wee, great. Lower slowly the way you came back, the way you came in, and shake it out. All right, so just for fun, I'll do it with the block this time. On my more challenging side. So left foot faces out, right foot turns in a bit. You're in a short stance, shorter maybe than you usually do for warrior two. All right, so the block, if you're using it, is in your left hand, or the chair is right there in front of your foot. So as you shift your weight into your left leg this time, see if you can get lighter on that back leg, and then bend and shift, and then lift off. Maybe you get a little lower. And then when you're ready, it's nice to just find the movement, to get a sense of what you're doing first. As you slow down those transitions, we're pushing down through the left foot and straightening up through that leg in order to slowly settle the hand to our support. You might rest your hand on your hip first, and then if you're finding yourself balanced enough to do this, flex fully through that lifted foot and find that slight movement in the hip to try to lift the leg a little higher. Good, and then lift and hold the leg, lifting while the right arm sweeps up. Whew. If you find yourself out of the balance, just take your time, come on back in. There you go. Lovely, another full breath there. Fantastic. So you're gonna push off your back foot or your front foot to come on back up as gracefully as you can, and then give it a shake. All right, nicely done. Let's come back to the front of our mat. Bring the palms together here in front of the heart. Let's go ahead and inhale the arms up, stretch tall. Exhale, reach wide, fold forward over the legs. So notice how your legs feel. We worked quite a bit in the different parts of the thighs and glutes. So this forward bend, how does it feel now? Find your feet supporting you. Sometimes it's nice to rock a little bit forward and back from toes to heels. That's it. And then as we rest our weight into our feet, let's bend the knees enough to bring the hands to the floor. We'll step this back into downward dog. So feel and find the lift of the hips and the release of the head between the arms as you notice another breath. Good. Lower the knees to the ground. Let's come to sitting. So we'll stretch out the legs in front. And let's actually, if you want, you can sit up on a bit of a pillow. We'll get into the hips a little bit, like stretching them, okay? Rather than strengthening so much. So let's bring the feet to the floor. So you're sitting right up on your sitting bones as much as possible. So you find the lift of the spine, nice and tall. And then let's take the left foot, take hold of it underneath your right thigh. Let that left knee sort of draw down a little bit. But flex the foot so you're not sickled at the ankle as you find this movement into your hip. So you're letting your knee sort of move side to side, but the movement isn't coming from the knee, it's coming from the hips. So see if you can feel that. And then can you let this knee swing in towards the middle? So maybe the knee comes sort of in front of your navel, or maybe it's more just in front of that same hip. Whatever your hip lets you do, okay? Resting your foot on the floor now, somewhere beside that opposite hip or in front of, okay? And then we can try to rest into the right side, the right hip, while we maybe walk this foot a little more to the left. So it might stay here, or it might be able to cross over that knee. What matters is your foot is actually on the floor. So if you notice your big toe lifting, just come back a bit. All right, let's take this left hand underneath the thigh. So we're holding on to our right thigh as we twist to the right. So you can let the belly turn, the ribs and chest turn. You can stretch your right arm out, or you can rest it on the floor. So let's be in the twist. Feel as you inhale, your belly expand and soften, your ribs move as your lungs fill. As you exhale, drawing up and in through the belly to help turn you deeper into the twist so the shoulders can do less. Really nice. And then coming back with your inhale to center. And let's just sit either in a cross-legged position with the right leg in front, or both knees stacked, one over the other, feet off to the side. What feels good in your hips and your knees today? And then come forward a little bit. And you'll notice as soon as you come forward, probably a little more stretch in that right hip. So use your hands to support you in this gentle release forward, trying to soften down into your hips, into your low back. That's it. One more breath there. Really nice. And then make your way back upright. We can give the legs a little shake, a little stretch out. And then we'll take it to the other side. So start with your feet on the floor in front of you, in front of your knees, so you can sit up nice and tall. And then we'll take hold of the right foot. So flex that right foot as you hold on to it underneath your left thigh and start to move at the hip to bring your knee out and in across. And so how far does this leg go in towards the center, right? So you're trying to point your knee as much forward as your hip lets you do so comfortably. And then we can walk the right foot over until either this hip starts to lift or the foot starts to roll off, okay? Feel your spine tall as you hold underneath your right thigh and twist, turning to the left. Turn the belly, turn through the belly, turn through the ribs. Let the head follow, a gentle turn through the neck. And then once you're there in the twist, can you feel your breath and let it move you within the twist? That's it. Be present with the slow length of the exhale and the full depth of your inhale. All right, lovely. Let's inhale back to center. And again, you can cross left leg over right, sitting cross-legged, or left knee over bottom knee. Shifting and settling into both hips so that you can come forward, feeling like your belly lifts up and over your pubic bone as you move forward. So you're trying to almost bring your belly towards your thighs or your shins, and then resting your hands where they support you with as little tension in the shoulders as possible. So here too, follow and feel the depth of the inhale into a soft, relaxed belly. Each exhale, maybe finding the belly's support, letting out the breath more fully. Good, and then take your time to make your way back upright again. Leaning back into your hands, you can stretch out the legs and shake them out, roll in and out, loosen into the ankles and knees and hips. All right, and then let's go ahead and rest once again on the back. Coming into Shavasana, so feel free to use supports, a bolster under your legs, a pillow under the head. The idea is to try to find a comfortable alignment for your spine to relax into. And as you rest, the length of your arms, feel your shoulders settle. And feel your legs softening into their position, relaxing any tension around the hips, and maybe just notice, how do your legs feel through the thighs, through the hips and glutes. Noticing where your breath moves, staying connected with its rhythm while you just let go of any sense of control over your breath. Can you still remain conscious of the breath as it flows in and as it flows out? as you come back to sense your whole body resting here, begin to deepen your breath as you reawaken through your fingers and your toes, your wrists and ankles, rolling your head a little side to side. And then feel free to enjoy another full body stretch. One last time, noticing, how does this feel here at the end of your practice? And then hug both knees once again, rocking gently until you roll all the way over onto one side. And pressing yourself up into any comfortable seated position. Feeling your spine's length as you bring the palms to touch in front of the heart. Feel their warmth. Bowing down to your practice today. Thank you for being here.